One night, as Adachi slept, they sent fire into her room to burn her, hoping to scar her for life. But unbeknownst to him and his vile wife Akwete, fate had other plans. Ifadigo had on Ndukwe's request been praying for his family every night, and that night was not an exception. When Echezona sent the fire out, it miraculously spared Adachi and instead burnt his beautiful and proud daughter, and left her disfigured and in great pains. Once upon a time, there lived two brothers, Ndukwe and Echezona. Both brothers were born into the family of the greatest farmers of their time in the land of Izi. Izi dwellers were known to be great farmers, which made it a center of agricultural trade. People from neighboring and distant lands came to Izi to buy farm produce such as yams, cassava, corn, rice, and both palm oil and palm kernel. Though the market as well was a weekly one, it still served its purpose, carrying over 5,000 villagers from around the region. Their land was favored by their chi with some local minerals like salt and limestone. Ndukwe and his younger brother Echezona, as the descendants of the greatest farmers in Izi, were equally doing well with their farm work. Ndukwe was a respectable and intelligent man. The people of Izi admired him for his wisdom, generosity, and hard work. His brother Echezona, though intelligent and hardworking, was a greedy and envious man. And to crown it all, he married a wicked woman and was easily influenced by her. Their father Mazo Konkwo was a kind and wise man who knew the value and importance of peace and equity in one's family, and had divided his vast land equally between his two sons before he died. The fertile lands were divided into two. Ndukwe was given a piece that was a mile away from the river, while his brother Echezona received an equally fertile plot but in another angle of the farm. Okonkwo believed that this division would bring peace and prosperity to his sons. However, Echezona was not satisfied. His wife's ceaseless banter increased his discontent. She told Echezona that their father had cheated him by giving him a less fertile portion of their land. She told him they deserved the better portion of land, which to her was the one a mile away from the river. Though Echezona had all his life farmed on both portions of land and had known the lands to have equal level of fertility, but his wife's complaint triggered his greed still. He went to his brother and asked him to give him his own share of the land and take his, that he needed it for a bulk rice farming business since it was close to the river. Ndukwe knew his brother to be a greedy and cunning man, but for peace in the family, he reluctantly agreed for a swap. He gave Echezona his own portion of the shared lands and took his. Ndukwe hoped this kind gesture of his would appease his brother, but Echezona's eyes were still set on a prime land by the road at Ndiono, the one his brother intended to reserve for his son's future home. As they continued to farm in their respective lands, one day Echezona approached his brother Ndukwe, demanding he gave him the land by the road. But to his surprise, Ndukwe, who would give up anything for peace, refused to give him the land. He told him the land was for his son to build his home whenever he was ready. Ndukwe told him he had given him his portion of lands by the river in exchange of his just so he could be happy, but yet he still got eyes on his other portions. Echezona was enraged by his brother's refusal to grant his wish, and so he spoke to him rudely out of anger, calling him a wicked man. He told him that he had cheated him, saying their father had given them equal shares, but he kept the best for himself, and he must give him that land or there would be war. Akwete, Echezona's wife, added fuel to the fire by telling her children to stay away from their uncle and his household. She also warned her co-wife Ndidi to stay away from her. Ndukwe was not moved by his brother's greed-filled outburst. Later that day, when he was about sleeping in the night, his wife Ndidi, who happened to be a woman of peace and wisdom, advised him to give the land to his brother, that they would find another way for their son. She pleaded with him to do as she had said, so they could keep peace in their family. She said their father would be sad in his grave if he knew they fight over little things like that. Ndukwe, who had intently listened to his wife's plea, told her that his brother's greed had no bounds, and giving him the land would only lead to trouble in the future. He told her that he cannot do that. He said his brother would never be satisfied no matter what he gave him. Echezona was jealous and greedy, but not fetish. But his wife Akwete was. And when Ndukwe stood his ground and her husband left in rage, she vowed to make him regret his decision. Over the next few weeks, Echezona's bitterness grew. As a result of Akwete's relentless nagging, she told her husband that they would have that land by every means possible, as Ndukwe does not deserve it but them. One night, Akwete told her husband that if Ndukwe and his wife Ndidi were out of the picture, they could claim the land for themselves. Echezona shut her up on hearing her spew such evil. He told her he would not kill his only brother to take that which was not rightfully his. Akwete, the evil woman, made their home uncomfortable for him for refusing to take her advice. They lived like cat and rat until one early morning before sunrise. Akwete visited a local herbalist known for his evil practices to get a charm known as talk and do. When she got home, she prepared a tasty meal for her husband and added the talk and do charm. The reason why Akwete got this charm was to cage Echezona and make him do as she said. And after he had eaten the food with the portion, she brought up the issue of sending his brother and his wife to the great beyond. Echezona immediately approved of it. The next day, he visited an evil native doctor and told him to give him a potion that would rid him of Ndukwe and his wife. The herbalist saw a greedy and desperate man, but he had to do what he knew how to do. And so he gave him a potion in a small bottle and asked that he add a few drops in their food or drink, and they would be gone within days. Echezona returned home with the potion in his hand, but wondered how and why he would kill his only brother because of land when he has his. He told his wife Akwete that he does not think killing his brother was a good idea, but the vile woman made him believe it was the right thing to do. The next day, Echezona invited his elder brother and his wife Ndidi over for supper, pretending to have realized his mistakes and wanted to mend their relationship. Ndukwe, ever hopeful for reconciliation, accepted the invitation and went to his brother's house with his wife. That night they ate and drank, and then returned home happy that peace has been restored in their home. Unknown to them, Echezona and his vile wife Akwete had poisoned their food and drink. As they slept that night, few hours into the night, they began to feel the effects of the poison. They grew weaker and weaker until they gave up the ghost, leaving their 3 children alone in the world filled with wickedness. Ndukwe's children, seeing their parents gone, were faced with cruel reality of life as orphans with no help. Their uncle Echezona, who was supposed to be their sole guardian, showed no compassion or care for them. Instead, he saw them as obstacles to his ultimate goal of acquiring all the family's lands. First, he sold the land by the roadside which his brother had been reserving for his son. And when his nephew confronted him, his wife, out of rage, casted a spell of blindness on him. And they went ahead and took all their late father's lands and warned them not to ever get close to the farm, not to talk of farming or harvesting from them. Their ill treatment forced Ndukwe's children into the streets, wandering the village as destitute, struggling to survive. Adachi, Ndukwe's first daughter, always took her brother Ndubisi to Azra market to sing and beg for alms. As she sung, people who passed by gave them money, and from the money they raised, they bought food to eat. One day, Echezona saw them at the market and felt bad for their condition. He went home and told his wife Akwete that it was time they helped his late brother's children. At least that will be a way to appease his soul after killing him. Akwete's wickedness knew no bounds. She refused to offer any help to her husband's late brother's children. Instead, she told her husband to bring them to live with them and then exploited them further. She told them to work for her, performing menial tasks without any regard of their well-being. Adachi and Dalo toiled tirelessly and often slept without food. Adachi and her siblings comforted themselves as they sung this song. Ụwa m onye ka m ga-akọsara, anya mmiri ejula nụ m anya, nne na nna m apụla m ụla, Chima matara m ọsọ enyemaka, nne na nna m apụla m ụla. They remained close, supported each other, and lived with the hope that one day justice would prevail. As the wicked unmarked years passed, one fateful day, a man named Ifadigo visited Izzi from a far-away town. He was a wealthy and devout Christian who had come to Izzi for his business. In the market, he met Adachi and her blind brother begging by the roadside and was struck by her eloquent voice. He gave them some money and asked to know about them. Adachi narrated their ordeal to him, and he felt so sorry for them. He prayed with them and gave them words of encouragement. When he got home that night, he dreamt of a couple dressed in white gown, crying and begging him to help their children. Ifadigo woke up and prayed for a clearer vision, as he had never met the couple, not to talk of knowing their family. The next day, Ifadigo again went to Azwa Market to continue his purchase and again ran into Adachi and her brother. It was at that point that something in him told him they were the couple's children. He again prayed for them and took them to eat. He told them to stop coming to the market to beg and then gave Adachi some money to buy some things and sell in the market. Adachi stopped begging and started selling rice with her siblings in the market. Not quite long after she stopped begging, a man came from a nearby village and expressed his desire to marry her. Dike decided to arrange a meeting with Adachi's uncle Echezona, as he was their only surviving relative. Although they knew of their uncle's greed and wickedness, they hoped he would approve of the union and offer his blessings. Dike visited Echezona and asked for Adachi's hand in marriage. Echezona was at first happy to marry Adachi off, but not until his wife Akwete told him that she would not be alive and see Adachi and her sister get married before her own daughter. Echezona, whose wife controlled like a television controlled by a remote, was soon overshadowed by his wife's judgment. They made a plan to disfigure Adachi so that no man would want to marry her. One night, as Adachi slept, they sent fire into her room to burn her, hoping to scar her for life. But unbeknownst to him and his vile wife Akwete, fate had other plans. Ifadigo had on Ndukwe's request been praying for his family every night, and that night was not an exception. When Echezona sent the fire out, it miraculously spared Adachi and instead burnt his beautiful and proud daughter, and left her disfigured and in great pains. And as Ifadigo continued to pray, Ndubisi regained his sight. When Echezona and his wife learned of their daughter's predicament, they were devastated, and out of shock, Akwete died of heart attack. Echezona realized that his own wickedness had brought pain upon his family. He confessed to his sins to the villagers. The villagers were horrified, and out of anger, they set his hut ablaze and reduced it to ashes. They took all he had stolen from his late brother's children away from him and gave them back to Ndukwe's children. Echezona could not bear living in his village, treated as an outcast, and so he took his own life and left his daughter, who was now scared and rejected by the villagers, to bear the burden of their misdeed alone. Adachi got married to Dike, and her brother Ndubisi and Dalo continued to work in their father's land, exporting goods out of their country. They used their wealth and influence to help orphans and less privileged ones. They made sure that no child under their watch suffered as they had suffered. They honored Ifadigo, who had been their guardian angel, for his kindness and care. Ndukwe's children lived the remaining days of their lives in love, peace, and gratitude.
Hello, favorite one. Thanks for listening to my stories. Your support means the world to me, and I couldn't do this without you. Your likes, comments, and shares keep me motivated to create more stories. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss out on any of my new stories. Thanks again, and see you in the next story.